Social engineering. In this nugget, we'll be discussing social engineering, which is really nothing more than a con job. You want to get somebody to give up information or resources that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to give up. We'll take a look at some prerequisites for that. What kind of things work best in a social engineering environment? We can't all always meet all the prerequisites that are necessary, but perhaps if you're working with other hackers, you might be able to, as a team, get everything together that you need. We'll also take a look at some of the emotions involved in social engineering and how to use those against your target, as well as how to use certain psychological elements against your target. We'll take a look at the various means that you can use to get to your target, such as email or the phone and certain other resources, as well as just kind of some miscellaneous suggestions that hopefully will make your social engineering attacks a little bit better. Now, as we get started here, let me point out that social engineering is not a technical skill for the most part. I mean, I guess you could send a spoofed email and something like that to try to derive information from somebody. That's somewhat technical, but for the most part, the actual execution of it really is not. It really depends upon certain people skills and a variety of other prerequisites. Let's go ahead and address those. And frankly, a lot of these prerequisites for being a good social engineer are where a good hacker can often fall short. Because let's face it, a lot of us hackers, we're just geeks. I mean, we were in the chess club in high school. We were never the prom king or prom queen. We never dated the high school cheerleader or the football players or anything like that. A lot of us were never in fraternities unless it was some geek fraternity of some kind. And so, forgive me for being stereotypical, but to some degree, this is going to be true. Now, there are some hackers that I know that are really pretty good at, seems like, everything. These are people I hate, by the way, but they're extremely technically adept, and they're very likable people who are able to be very persuasive and very good social engineers. And of course, everybody is different. You may have a skill set that would work better with coming up with some kind of a script or something like that, or some kind of a new O-Day exploit. Some of the rest of us might be better at using these people skills for social engineering purposes. And a good example of that is Kevin Mitnick, who is still well regarded as one of the best hackers of all time. Well, of course, the fact of the matter is, nobody really widely respects Kevin for having been a good coder of any kind. Most of his best hacks were pulled off with social engineering. And social engineering is mostly just pulling a con job on somebody and convincing them to do something for you that they wouldn't have done otherwise. Now, as I go through this list here in a moment, let me point out that if you don't feel comfortable with some of these things and you're not really good at some of these things, you need to learn more about them, you might want to just rent a good movie, such as The Matchstick Men, starring Nicolas Cage. That was an excellent movie. It had to do with pulling cons and the various ways they were able to do different things. And although certainly there are some moral questions about that, it was an excellent film in terms of seeing how con men do what they do. And this is what we're really doing, is doing con jobs. Con men have an excellent ability to use good people skills. They're able to go up to a bar or walk up to somebody, or while they're standing in line at the grocery store, easily chat people up and talk about all different kinds of things and possibly even elicit certain personal information out of them. One of the things that I've found is that people like to talk about themselves. Even this works way outside of hacking. Even if you're at a dull, boring party and you feel awkward because no one's talking, as long as you can talk to somebody else and ask them questions about themselves, the conversation will continue to roll. Now, unfortunately for these people skills, there's no next finish wizard that will suddenly get you all the information you need out of people. This is something that comes straight from you to the other person. You're going to have to be able to read the mood of people and read responses. You're going to have to be able to determine when you've asked a certain question, if that elicits an awkward feeling from them, or if they seem to be open about talking about that particular topic. Most of the time, and sometimes this is where I fail as well, we have a tendency to overtalk things. Where if we say something that someone feels uncomfortable about, maybe we started to talk about security in the workplace or something like that, and we've hit it a little bit too on the nose, then maybe they start to feel a little awkward or uncomfortable about that. You have to be able to work your way around that. Typically, the best way to do it is to segue into a different topic quite easily, and one that you hopefully will already know they're comfortable talking about or like talking about, maybe sports or something like that, or movies. You have to really think on your feet and be able to quickly redirect the subject of conversation if you feel like you've gone into a bad place that would make that person uncomfortable with you. And also, and by the way, these are all in no particular order, also another thing you might consider is a certain moral flexibility there. If you have a certain level of conscience, you'll probably start to feel bad about trying to con people out of this information. Remember, a certified ethical hacker has permission from the corporation to get this information. One of the main weaknesses we're looking for here is people. I mean, you can have the best firewalls. You can use certificate authorities to distribute certificates on smart cards that people need to log in with using a password and extremely tight hardware, computer security, and uncrackable algorithms for encryption. But if one of these users with a smart card decides to loan you their smart card because you got locked out of your computer and you really need to log onto the computer to get your boss a report that you need, and they give you the PIN as well, well, you've just sunk that entire security scheme. And don't think that couldn't happen. But again, the main point with this is you might feel bad about some of the cons that you're going to be pulling here, about some of the information that you're pulling out, and the fact that really you're just using people, and you might get these people to like you to get the information that you need out of them. I'm not going to say whether that's right or wrong or whatever. I'm just saying that there are moral questions about that, and you might have a conscience issue with that, like I know I have at times. Also, you're going to have to really put on some acting skills. When we take a look at the various methods we can use here in a while, we're going to see that you might need to act like you're totally somebody else. You might need to act like you're a sales representative from a certain company, or a service repairman of some kind. Or you might have to act like you like somebody when you really despise them. Any of us that are married might be able to relate to that. No, not kidding. In any case, you might have to put on some acting skills that you are not accustomed to. And if you're one of those people that really takes a lot of pride in saying, well, I just call it like I see it, I just tell people exactly what I think of them, and all that kind of thing, well, I'm afraid you're going to have to be a little bit more obscure than that, and not quite so plain in your opinions of people, because you're going to have to act like, again, you like people that you don't. Or you might have to flatter somebody who's a total jerk and be a little bit insincere about how you act with that person. So there's definitely a good acting thing going on there. And there's also the issue of having a good memory. Now, this is where I fall short sometimes because I've got a horrible memory. This is something that my wife likes to frequently remind me about, that I've got a terrible memory. I don't remember our anniversary, and I guess it's our anniversary, not just her anniversary. That kind of thing, and Christmas gifts and birthdays, and okay, I just realized her birthday is tomorrow. Okay, so anyway, we got memory issues we got to remember. Why is that important for the hacker? Because you have to remember names that you've brought up to different people. And that's a big part of social engineering, is to name drop names of people that your target knows about. So you can say, hey, you know so-and-so over in accounting, don't you? And you can use this kind of thing to build in bridges. Also, what we're going to be doing a lot of the time here is lying. And you really must have a good memory for the lies that you've told, because otherwise someone might catch you in them and you won't have a way of backing out of them. And typically when you tell one lie, you have to tell more lies to cover it up, and you have to remember a whole series of lies that you've told to be able to support yourself and to support your story. Also, it certainly helps if you're likable. Now, this is not always true with social engineering. There's certain social engineering attacks where you'll come across as an authority figure who could be a real jerk, but that can apply pressure to people. But a lot of the good social engineering skills that we'll use, you need to have a likable personality so that people are willing to give you information. Likewise, you need to be persuasive, and a little bit of charisma can go a long way, especially if you've got a lot of these other things. Good people skills, you're likable, you're persuasive, you're much more likely to be able to get things out of people if you have good conversational skills as well. I'd also point out it's an old classic book, but there's a classic book out there called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I don't even remember when it first came out. I think it was, in the 30s or something. I don't know. But it's been around for a long time, and it actually, if you fall short in any of these people skill items or any of these social engineering prerequisites, that might be a great place to go, not only for your certified ethical hacking skills, but just for life in general. There's certain emotional interactions that take place with social engineering as well, and one of those key ones is going to be authority. Now, if you're a hacker that doesn't necessarily have those skills that I showed on the previous page, you're not good with conversationally, you don't have the best people skills, you're not very charismatic, any of those kinds of things, well, just about anybody can use an authority ploy to be able to get information out of somebody, and it really plays upon people's fears. Just about anybody can act mad. That's one of the easiest acting skills to have, is anger. So for example, maybe this is your target right here, and this is the person you want to derive information out of, and this is you over here. And you can say, hey, I am your boss's boss. Okay, so this is that person's boss. I'm your boss's boss. And you would have to mention this person's name, whatever it happens to be. Say, I'm Joe Smith's boss, and I'm telling you that you need to get me these blueprints on our new patent design, or I need to get this confidential report, or someone has been messing with your account and we need to log on as your account to confirm that your account is secure. Give me your username and password. And a lot of times, if you hit hard and hit fast, people in just a panic will respond and give you the information they need before they have a chance to think about it. This is also potentially one of the riskiest items as well, because this person who's just given up their username and password out of fear may go to their boss and say, wow, your boss was really mean to me. Do you know what they made me do? Well, then something's going to get tracked down and you could, get caught that way. So the better attacks are ones where people subtly give information just in casual conversation without even realizing that they've given something up, and that's what's going to require key people skills. Another ploy in this, by the way, is to not act like you are the authority figure, but that you are maybe the secretary of the authority figure. And you call this person up and you say, I am so scared, I think I'm going to lose my job. We lost the report, we're trying to send in the blueprints to the patent office, and my boss is telling me to get it right now. And, if you do that, you can also play on another key factor here, and that would be sympathy. Get this person to feel sorry for you. I'm afraid I'm going to get fired if I don't get this from my boss right now. Well, there's sympathy there, and the authority is not directly from this person here now, of course. It's the authority coming down to this person and then kind of being transferred in terms of fear to this person. Who's our target right over here. You can also put flattery in there. Maybe you've had an interaction with that person recently. And this is another good thing I like to do. I'll just go in, I'm the new employee in the office, and I'm saying, I walk into the copy room and there's another secretary or an assistant in there, and I say, dadgummit, I can't figure out this copier. My boss wants these copies right now, and I'm new here, and I'm kind of nervous. How do you work this copier? And then just get this person to help you out, help you use the copier. And then you can come back to that person later on when you're in this situation where my boss is mad at me, they want the blueprints for the new patented design, and you can come back to that same person and say, you know what, you were so good and so nice with helping me earlier. Can you help me now? My boss is really mad at me and I'm going to get in big trouble. Well, that flattery is also another thing. And by the way, most of the social engineering attacks work best when you combine two or more of these different things at a time. There's also the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And we talked about that in a previous nugget under a different context. And with this, if you just get them afraid of something, afraid that they're going to lose their job, or they're going to get something negative on their work history, or uncertainty, oh, did I leave my password lying around? Any of those kinds of things. Where maybe you'll say, someone has said that you've written your password down, and we had someone recently log on with your password. Well, tell me your password, and we can confirm that and match that with our records and see if someone's used it improperly. Now, of course, that's technically inaccurate. There's no way that that's really going to happen because it's with hashes and all that kind of thing. But most users don't know that. And then if you can also get them to doubt themselves. Maybe this person was responsible for sending out something, in FedEx, some confidential documents to a business partner. Well, you can come in and say, hey, FedEx never got that. You're going to have to send that right now. Just send it as an email attachment to me right now. I'm going to get it in today's FedEx. I'm right down there by the shipping and receiving. The FedEx guy is waiting right now, and you can also add, a certain sense of urgency to all of this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, making them wonder to themselves, wow, did I not send out that FedEx? I thought I did. Well, now we've got a sense of urgency. We've got to get this out right now. So I guess I better email this person that report or that patent or whatever it is. There's certain other psychological interactions that can take place here as well, and one of those is reciprocation, where you do something nice for somebody, and in turn, perhaps they'll do something nice for you, and that's typically how people are. They're driven by a small sense of guilt or whatever. Ooh, well, I guess I better get this to that person because, after all, they were nice to me the other day. And this could just start off with something being very simple. Someone's walking up to the front door. They got a couple of boxes in their arms. They're trying to open the door. They can't, so you hold the door open for them. You offer to take one of the boxes up to their office, and this can be especially important as well if you're trying to gain access to physical security, because maybe you don't have a key card to get you in the door, but after all, you're carrying a box for this person, so they'll open the door, and you can tailgate in right after them, carrying one of their boxes over to their desk. And even though in your mind they just did you a favor by getting them in the building, in their mind, you were the nice person, and so maybe later on, they can do something nice for you. Maybe they'll be able to get you a corporate secret, a corporate document, or something else that you wouldn't otherwise be authorized to access, and because you acted nicely and you asked nicely for that particular item. If you have a chance to get social with people, if it's something like after hours, maybe buy a round of drinks for a group of people that are in a department that you're interested in. Try to see who you make the best connection with and who you might be able to get the most information out of at a later time. Again, reciprocation. You've been able to do something for someone. Or if you don't drink, maybe you take a couple of people out for lunch. Now, this would, of course, also require that you're going to have face-to-face, in-person interaction with these people, and you might be coming in as, a supposed contract worker or somebody like that, or a third-party worker who's in the building to fix something. There's also an issue of likability. And again, here's where it comes across where you have to have good people skills and you have to have an amiable personality potentially. This might also even involve flirting with somebody. Now, you can actually flirt with somebody to try to flatter them and get something out of them. And you don't necessarily, by the way, have to be particularly good looking to do this. Trust me, I know. But you can find certain targets who might be just flattered if somebody would flirt with them at all. And I don't mean to put that unkindly, that's just the way it can be sometimes. And again, here's where we run into our moral flexibilities, because you might give someone the impression that you're romantically interested in them when you're not the least bit romantically interested in them, and you know your CH contract's going to be over in 2 weeks anyway, and you'll probably never see this person again. There's other moral flexibility there, which again is something we talked about in the previous whiteboard here, would be that this person that you're flirting with, that you're getting to like you, that's going to give up corporate documents or corporate secrets or something else security sensitive, hey, you're going to have to name who this person was that gave that up to you in your final report to the corporation. And you might get that person fired. So not only did you lead this person on and give them the impression you were more romantically interested in them, but you also got them fired. How do you like that? That's a really tough spot to be in. So again, moral flexibility is there. Also, there's an issue of a pattern. This kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier. Maybe you're, again, in the copy room, you can't get the copy machine to work, someone helps you. Well, they helped you yesterday with the copier. So today you go to them and say, hey, I'm trying to get into my boss's computer. He left for lunch, but he told me he wanted this done by the end of the day. He didn't save it on the network server, so he saved it on his computer. I need to see if you can get me his password. And of course, since this person helped yesterday, maybe they'll help today. And if it's a help desk person, this is especially useful. Because as a pattern, it's the help desk's people's job to help people day in and day out. That's what they like to do. They are the answer people. So if you could call the help desk and say, hey, I'm trying to get into my boss's computer, and you're really helpful to me yesterday when I couldn't figure out Microsoft Word, can you reset his password for me because he's at lunch, and I'm going to get in trouble if I don't get this for him? Well, a naive help desk person might be able to do that for you. And even though you would think that the help desk would be a place where they're more technically proficient and knowledgeable, this can often be the weak link in the chain because they're used to giving answers to people. And also, just as a general rule, everybody likes to be the hero, especially men. We like to be the conquering hero that helped you out and you'll be forever grateful to us for, and send us Christmas gifts every year because we did such a good thing for you. We like to be the hero, and so if you can play up to that, that certainly helps out. Now, most of the topics I've discussed so far relate to face-to-face contact with people. There are other means for social engineering, however, and these, again, will come in handy if you're not that skilled with your social skills. One of those might just be instant messaging. Now, you do have to have some social skills, of course, with that as well, but you don't have to worry about voice inflection or the look on your face or any of those kinds of things. And a lot of us hackers chat away a lot anyway. So some instant messenger methods such as AOL, they have an AIM, what I think is what they call it, Yahoo Chat, any of those chat kind of services. And the key here would be to find out where your target likes to hang out. Do they hang out in certain chat rooms along a certain area of interest? Maybe they're car collectors or sports enthusiasts, or maybe they have certain kinds of fetishes or something like that. Well, you can use this to build in a level of trust and say, hey, you seem like a really nice guy. I want to go ahead and send you something that was pretty cool. I really liked it. And you can send them, for example, a file that will provide some kind of an escalation of privilege attack. For example, at the time of this recording, you could even send them, say, I want to send you this movie clip that I saw that was really funny. I think you'll really like it. And it might be a legitimate movie clip, but recently there was a WMV, that's a Windows Media File that's become susceptible to an attack where someone could take total control of that computer. So, you can see how this goes from one thing to the next. You chat person up here, say, hey, I'd like to send you this video that's really cool, and they open the video, and it does some kind of an escalation of service attack. And then there's also simply things like mailing lists. Now, most of what I've talked about so far has pretty much been face-to-face contact with people, but there are certain other social engineering means that you can use, especially if you don't have the social skills that other people might. One of those would be instant messaging, such as using AIM from America Online or Yahoo's Chat or whoever you want to use. But you can find your target, find out what they're interested in, and figure out which chat rooms they might hang out in. See if you can find that person. Or if you can sniff their network traffic, then you can see which chat rooms they're going to in advance. Then, once you find that out, you go to that chat room, try to befriend this person there, and it's not going to require quite as many social skills because you don't have to worry about voice inflection or the look on your face. You don't have to worry quite so much about reading these people. And plus, hackers often use instant messaging anyway, or forums and things like that, so they're accustomed to relating to people on this kind of a level. In any case, once you've built up a certain level of trust with this person, then you can offer to send them something. Say, hey, I'm going to send you a quick Windows media file, for example, and go ahead and play it. It's got a really funny clip. I think you'll like it. And once you've sent that to them, you might be able to use some kind of an escalation of privilege attack that will be able to allow you to take over their computer. And that's the case recently because about a month ago, there was, at this recording, a vulnerability against Windows media files that would allow someone to do that. And of course, there's been a patch that's come out recently, but a lot of people don't patch their computers after all. Also, there's certain things like mailing lists that you can use. You can also mine for certain mailing lists. Maybe you can find a certain area that this person is interested in, or maybe there are a number of employees that are in the company softball league, and maybe they're all in a mailing list. Well, this distribution list or mailing list or whatever it is, you might be able to just get a collection of names that you can mine from. There's also forums, and this is a great place to gain information that people wouldn't otherwise be able to give up. For example, maybe you can go to a forum, a troubleshooting forum for people's Cisco routers, and someone says, hey, I'm really having trouble with this Cisco router. I can't seem to get it to work right. And you can reply and say, hey, I'd love to be able to help you, but I'm going to have more information. Can you give me your router configuration file? And then they'll just paste it into the forum and give you all the goods right there, so you know exactly what's going on with their routers, can give you a foothold into their router systems. Also, there's the issue of just getting the people on the phone. A lot of the hacks, and in fact, a lot of Kevin Mitnick's hacks, were just done over the phone. There are some hackers who are able to even disguise their voices. They'll study the voice of a certain person in authority. Then they'll use the phone to call up some underling somewhere and pretend to be that authority figure. I'm not very good at that. I don't ever seem to be able to do that. So I've got some friends that can, but I never seem to be able to do so. I guess people tell me that my voice is kind of distinct somehow, and it's hard for me to disguise it. They say it's distinct. That could just be euphemism for annoying. I don't know. In any case, so you can call someone up over the phone and pretend to be that person, or otherwise stage your attack from there. This is also very easy to do because since they can't see you, they don't know that you're not someone from within their company. You could call that person and pretend to be someone from the help desk. Now, the only thing that could possibly give this away is a lot of PBXs will identify where the call is originating, and when you call that person at their desk, it'll potentially reveal caller ID, which you can circumvent, or at least it might also indicate that you're calling from outside of the building. Some people can get around this by calling into the secretary, or not the secretary, but the switchboard operator, and asking just for any name, Joe Smith. Then when you connect to Joe Smith, you can say, hey, you're not the person I was trying to talk to. Can you transfer me to some other person? And that's going to be the name of your actual target. Well, then when you get transferred to that other person, depending on the PBX, it may look like it actually came from Joe Smith. Or at least it will somehow obscure the actual origination of that call as being from outside. Of course, another way that we can interface with people for social engineering would be by using email. You might just send them innocent messages at first, or do something to build up a rapport with that person, especially if you don't have good face-to-face skills, or if you can't get face-to-face with this person because you're not really in their building. Then, of course, you can use email. Another thing you could do would be to make a phishing attempt. Maybe you want to install a keystroke logger on that person's computer. Well, you might be able to embed that in some kind of a virus or a Trojan of some kind, or you might just be able to use some kind of a web application. For example, here I got another phishing attempt to me. This one apparently comes from eBay, but in reality, it does not. And what we can do to check that is to see where it really comes from is to right-click on the web page, and then I can choose View Page Source. So by clicking on that, it shows me all the actual bare HTML. And I can go down here and take a look at the various links that are embedded into this page and so forth. And one thing that we'll see here, if I get out of this, if I can close that, is that I'll also see right here where it says Respond Now. Again, by right-clicking here and choosing Properties, I'm able to see that. That doesn't lead to eBay at all. That leads to whatever this website is here that this guy's trying to get me to go to. So if I go to the end of that again, I see that it gives me a PHP that's probably some kind of a web application that's trying to install some kind of an application. Now, in this case, I'm not going to actually go through with the whole thing just for my own security purposes, but I have created a snapshot of this Linux box, and that's my baseline image right here, which is a known good image. So I click on Respond Now, and by clicking on Respond Now, I haven't actually done this yet. Let's just see what happens. It might be a web page that's been brought down now. Maybe their ISP has seen that they're sensitive in terms of security. And then here it tries to get me to enter in my eBay user ID. This looks I think as far as I remember, exactly like the eBay webpage that is actually out there. But again, if you're careful enough to look at the top right here, where it shows me that I'm not going to eBay at all, I'm going to some other web page, and also I can see that it's not an HTTPS website, so it's not going to be encrypted or anything like that. So if I enter in my user credentials here, then obviously I'm just going to give up my credentials. Also note that I might not actually be interested in that person's eBay account at all. I might just be trying to look for other information. For example, a lot of people reuse passwords. So if I figure out what this person uses for their eBay password, there's a good chance that it's also the same password that they use at work, because people are too lazy to try to memorize multiple passwords. Or I might not send them a phishing attempt to eBay, because that's kind of started to get more high profile. People are starting to get more suspicious of that. What I could do also instead is to send them an email from a fake website that I've created that is along the lines of something that they're interested in. Maybe they're interested in baseball. Well, it might be some kind of a baseball fan club, and if you want to get access to our newsletter, enter in a username and password and sign up. Well, once they've done that, again, I've got their password, and if it's the same one that they use at work, it gives me a foothold into their account. That also, by the way, gives me the chance to get on a brief tangent here. A lot of times we hackers or hacking documentation or hacking books and all that say that we want to get root or we want to get the administrator account, and I'll even say that myself in speaking in general terms, but the fact of the matter is we really don't want to do that directly. What we'd rather do is to log on as just Joe User with average credentials and average privileges on the network, and then you can use things to escalate the privilege of that user's account so that you might be able to get them system level access. And in Windows, that pretty much gives you the same access as the administrator and more, because there are certain directories that even the administrator can't get direct access to. Now, if I've been able to escalate that person's account, I don't have to raise the attention of someone logging on as the administrator account and having the risk of that being logged somewhere and someone seeing that obvious logon. Instead, I've logged on as generic user, and yet I've been able to escalate the privileges of that account. And then it kind of all ties into what I just mentioned. They fill out a form or something on the web that reveals their password. You can get a foothold that way as well. Another thing you could do, of course, is just have face-to-face meetings, which is a lot of what I've discussed previously. Now then, let me just finish up with a few suggestions, kind of miscellaneous suggestions that are in no particular order, on how to use social engineering. One thing you could do would be to use a survey, and again, this is very useful if you don't have the social skills perhaps, or the conversational skills, or you're kind of shy. Well, you can always send a survey, and you can do that in the mail or over the web. Now, be careful of this one with the mail. You might have to sneak it into the company mail without actually using the United States Postal Service. And the reason for that is because even though you have a get-out-of-jail-free card with the contract you have with this company, that does not protect you against mail fraud. So you don't want to get in federal trouble with the federal government. The other thing you could do would just be to send them a link in an email saying, hey, fill out this web survey we're taking and get entered into a free trip to Aruba or a drawing or something like that. Usually you have to promise them a little something extra or a prize or something in order to be able to get them to fill out these surveys. And for example, here I just used Front Page to come up with just a really quick little form, and I could just, send them, tell us what you think about your current IDS system. Wouldn't that be nice if you could tell me all about your intrusion detection solution? A respondent to this survey will receive a gift. No obligation. And, tell us how satisfied you are. Well, I don't really care about this. I'm just trying to get them to give the impression that they're filling out a real survey. Which IDS do you currently use? Snort and certain other ones or whatever. They could fill in if it's something else. Give them a drop-down list. Then, I could just go on and on and on and ask a bunch of different questions, get their address here, and, where we can mail them their free copy of How to Make $1 Million and Never Pay Taxes. And so I'm sure you could, anybody with any kind of a web page editor can come up with a form like this and fill in with all kinds of good information that would look like a legitimate survey. So in any case, that's a good way to get them to volunteer up certain information that can help you with your footprinting and your reconnaissance. Then there's also just asking for a tour. A lot of corporations, especially that have some kind of an interesting industrial process, will offer you a free tour. Now, you probably won't see anything secretive there, but at least you get a lay of the land, and I would always recommend that if you can get a tour of the building or of their production facilities or whatever, that you do so. And a lot of times, if you can kind of break away from the crowd and kind of accidentally get lost, that might be useful as well. And that's kind of really our passive reconnaissance issue, but we'll still work in here. Another thing you might consider doing is just getting hired by the company. In fact, I remember a while back I actually got hired as a customer service representative for a credit card company, and all I had to be able to do was to be able to talk on the phone clearly, had to be able to pass a typing test, and pretty much just be a warm body. And then I sat through a week of training and orientation so that I could learn everything that those customer service representatives were trained in terms of their security and accessing their credit card systems. And actually, the training was pretty good. They did a pretty good job with the employees for general use. What I did find out, however, was the threat really wasn't of the employees giving up information or giving up PIN numbers or anything like that to people inappropriately. Really, it was an internal threat because I found out that I could actually get on their computer systems and circumvent their networks. You see, they had locked down the desktop so that the employees were only able to run the application that showed the credit card information and Microsoft Windows Calculator. But I was able to circumvent that and get to other parts of the network and other resources on the network that the generic employees were not able to access. So getting hired, even if it's just a menial job, is a really good way to get in. You can also get hired, just about a lot of people can get hired as a custodian or a janitor. In fact, I've also been hired as a janitor. Janitors can get into any room just about in the building, the CEO's office, the president's office, the plant manager, anybody, because after all, everybody wants their trash emptied and their office cleaned. Well, emptying the trash is a great way to look for confidential information or even personal information about various people. And we talked about dumpster diving previously. Now let's also discuss being an outside worker. You might just get hired as an outside worker coming in, or you might impersonate an outside worker. Again, walk in with a tool belt, and part of it depends on who you are and what your look is like. You know, some people would look better in a business suit with a briefcase, and they would look more convincing that way. Other people would look more convincing with a hard hat, or with a tool belt on, or something like that, or a jumpsuit. But again, this somewhat relates to our physical access from a previous nugget where you can look the part and then walk into the building. Now, in any case, once you're in there, you can start the social engineering. You can say, hey, I'm looking for a certain somebody, or you can just start to chat somebody up saying, hey, I'm from XYZ company. We're working on a partnership with you guys, you know, whatever. So just start chatting people up. Also, again, you can use the phone to make contact with people. You can also just go to the lunchroom. Even if I'm proposing as an outside worker or a new hire or something like that, I could just hang out in the lunchroom and chat somebody up in there and try to hopefully make contact with somebody and get some revealing information ultimately. You can also try off-site meetings, and you can find out where a lot of the employees like to hang out. For example, there's several large credit card company offices in the Phoenix area, and one of them there's a favorite lunch spot, and there's also a favorite after-work happy hour kind of spot that a lot of the employees like to hang out at. Well, I could just go there and eavesdrop, or I could go in there and try to chat somebody up, buy a few drinks for people or whatever. Another thing you can do is to use a crew. For example, this is very useful if you're on the phone, you're calling somebody else saying my boss is mad at me because they want me to get this password or they want me to get these schematics. Well, somebody else from your crew can kind of be shouting at you in the background so that the person that you're talking to on the phone can hear that and they feel sorry for you. Also, someone else in that crew might have a voice that sounds more like the boss or sounds more convincing or something. And as I said early in our series, a lot of hackers work in gangs, and so it's very useful if you can get 2 or 3 other people at least to be able to help you with this. In this nugget, we discussed social engineering, and we talked about some of the various prerequisites, most of which have to do with people skills and social skills, conversational skills, and things of this nature, which are nevertheless very important, although they're not very technical. We also took a look at some of the emotions involved in social engineering and how to use those against your target. And hopefully, you don't have to violate your conscience too much when you manipulate these people, but sometimes that's just the nature of the business that we have to do. Also, we took a look at some of the psychology involved in how to get people to do things that you want. For example, someone might want to reciprocate. You did something nice for them, so of course they'll want to do something nice for you. Then we looked at various means, such as using email, websites, news groups, forums, and things of this nature. I also kind of provided just a few additional suggestions in helping to make your hacks go well in terms of the social engineering attempts that you'll make. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.